It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning. I never thought my mailbox would become a battlefield. I stepped outside to grab my mail, only to find my mailbox smashed to pieces. The wooden post was splintered, the door hung by a single hinge, and my letters were scattered across the lawn like confetti after a parade. I stood there in disbelief, trying to process the destruction. The mailbox, a simple wooden structure that had stood proudly at the end of my driveway for years, was now a pile of broken bits and splinters. At first, I thought it was a hit and run, maybe a reckless driver who had taken a wrong turn too quickly. I quickly scanned the road, but there was no sign of an accident. The pavement was perfectly intact. No tire tracks, no debris. Nothing that could explain how my mailbox had been reduced to a heap of rubble. Then, something caught my eye. Footprints. They weren't subtle. They were clear and led directly to Karen's house. Karen was my nightmare neighbor. She was the kind of person who found joy in making everyone else's life a little bit more miserable. She'd yell at kids for stepping on her grass, call the cops on neighborhood barbecues, and once even screamed at me for breathing too loud while I was gardening. A real gem, right? But destroying my mailbox? That was a new level of crazy. I couldn't let it slide. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with thoughts of confrontation. The adrenaline surged through my veins. I marched over to her house, my fists clenched at my sides. I could already hear the sound of her voice, that shrill tone, and I braced myself. When I knocked, she answered with that overly sweet smile of hers. "Oh, hi there. What can I do for you?" she asked, as if she didn't have a single care in the world. I forced myself to keep calm. "Karen, I need to talk to you about my mailbox." Her eyes narrowed just slightly, but her smile never faltered. "What about your mailbox?" she asked innocently, as if she hadn't just destroyed it with what could only be described as an act of vengeance. "I think you know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, pointing toward the wreckage at the end of my driveway. "You did this, didn't you?" Her expression shifted for just a moment, a fleeting look of guilt before she quickly recovered, offering that signature Karen smirk. "Oh, please. You think I'd do something like that?" "I don't know anything about it," she said, brushing it off with a flick of her hand. But I wasn't buying it. Not for a second. I had seen the footprints, and I knew. The evidence was undeniable, and deep down, I could feel the anger rising. I didn't know what to expect in return. Maybe an apology, a confession. Certainly not. Instead, I had a new idea forming in my head. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. But not in the way she'd expect. I had a plan. The first step was simple. I needed a new mailbox, one that was going to stand out. I wasn't about to let her off easy, not after this. So I went online, found a mailbox with an absurdly high price tag, and ordered it. This was going to be a statement. It was going to be big, bold, and undeniably flashy, something Karen would have no choice but to notice. But my revenge didn't end there. I spent hours fixing up my yard. I trimmed the hedges, planted some bright flowers, and even painted my fence a fresh coat of white. If Karen thought she could intimidate me by destroying my mailbox, I was about to show her that my life was thriving, with or without her approval. As I was finishing up the repairs, I saw her peeking from behind her blinds, watching me. I could almost hear the gears in her head turning, probably wondering if she could get away with more. Little did she know, I had a surprise in store, one that would keep her on edge, wondering just when her nightmare was going to hit. And so, the battlefield had been set. Not for a physical fight, but a quiet, passive-aggressive war that I was more than ready to win. And Karen? She had no idea what was coming next. 2 weeks later, it happened again. The sun had barely set, and the moon hung low in the sky when I noticed something strange outside. I didn't hear the usual sound of a passing car or the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. It was dead quiet. And then I remembered. The security camera I'd installed on a whim after the first incident, just in case something like this ever happened again, had been running for days. I'd set it up to watch the mailbox after the first destruction, thinking I might catch someone vandalizing my property. Little did I know that this time I would be getting the best kind of evidence. At around 3 a.m., the footage began. The screen flickered to life, and I saw Karen, in her familiar bathrobe and mismatched pajamas, creeping down the street toward my house. It was like something out of a bad comedy sketch, but it wasn't funny. She was carrying a baseball bat, swinging it casually as she approached my mailbox. My heart raced as I watched her inch closer, the bat in her hand gleaming under the streetlight. Without hesitation, she raised the bat, took a swing, and wham! The mailbox was gone in an instant, shattered into even more pieces than before. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the destruction unfold, my disbelief giving way to boiling rage. I had the evidence. It was her. Red-handed. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the video, and marched straight to her door. I wasn't going to stand by and let her get away with it again. This time, I had proof. I knocked firmly, the sound of my knuckles rapping against her door loud enough to stir her from her sleep. She opened the door with that same insufferable smile, clearly confused by my presence at such an ungodly hour. But that didn't matter now. I wasn't here to play nice. "Karen," I said, holding the phone in front of her face, "this is the last time. One more time, and I'll make sure you never touch my property again." Her eyes flicked to the screen, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of panic in her gaze. But as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, replaced by the same condescending look she always wore. She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms over her chest. "Prove it was me," she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. I couldn't believe it. Even with the video, she was denying it. There was no mistaking it. The bat, the pajamas, the unmistakable walk, everything about that footage screamed Karen. But she wasn't going to make this easy for me, was she? No, she was going to force me to get creative, to really make sure she understood that I wasn't going to just let this slide. And that's when it hit me. If she wasn't going to admit it, then I'd force her to. But not through threats or empty promises. I would let the law handle this. "Fine," I said, my voice suddenly cold. "You want proof? I'll let the authorities decide. I'm sure they'll have no problem identifying you in the footage. And while they're investigating, I'll make sure everyone in the neighborhood knows exactly what you've been up to." She froze, her face turning a pale shade of pink as she opened her mouth to retort, but no words came out. I didn't need to wait for her to dig herself into an even deeper hole. She knew I wasn't bluffing. I took a step back, my finger hovering over my phone screen, ready to make a call. I'd already gathered enough evidence to make her squirm, and I wasn't going to waste any more time. "You have a choice," I said, the finality in my voice unmistakable. "Stop messing with my property, or I'll make sure the whole neighborhood knows what kind of person you really are. The ball's in your court, Karen." For the first time, I saw her pause, her bravado crumbling slightly. She probably thought she could push everyone around, intimidate people into submission, but I was done playing by her rules. She glared at me, grinding her teeth as she muttered something I couldn't hear under her breath. Then, with one last huff, she slammed the door in my face, and I knew that this time I had won. It wasn't just about the mailbox anymore. It was about standing up for myself, putting an end to her reign of terror, and making sure she knew that she couldn't keep bullying me, or anyone else, without consequences. But as I walked back to my house, I couldn't shake the feeling that the war was far from over. Karen may have been momentarily defeated, but I wasn't foolish enough to think this was the end. She'd come back, of course. And when she did, I'd be ready. I wasn't just going to replace the mailbox. I was going to make it indestructible. After that second attack, I had no doubt in my mind. Karen wasn't just some petty vandal. No, she was a force of nature, a woman on a mission to make my life as miserable as possible. And while I couldn't control her actions, I could certainly control mine. I wasn't going to stand idly by, watching her destroy my property. Not this time. I was going to give her a mailbox that would make her second-guess every bat swing she ever attempted. I was going to make it indestructible. I picked up the phone, dialing my old buddy Tom, who ran a welding business in town. Tom and I had worked on a few projects together over the years, and he was known for his ability to build things that could withstand just about anything. He was the kind of guy you'd call if you wanted something built to last, whether it was a custom fence, a storage shed, or something more unique. "Hey, Tom," I said when he answered. "I've got a little project for you. I need a mailbox. But not just any mailbox. I need it to be, well, indestructible." Tom laughed. "You want a mailbox that can survive a wrecking ball or a missile strike or something?" I chuckled along with him, but I was serious. "Something like that. Karen's been taking a swing at mine with a baseball bat, and I've had enough. I want something that can handle her wrath." There was a pause on the other end, and then Tom said, "All right, I'm in. I'll bring the tools, and we'll make this thing a fortress. When do you want to start?" We agreed on a weekend, and I began making preparations. I knew this project wasn't going to be quick, but I was ready for it. I wanted a mailbox that was so tough, even a professional batter wouldn't be able to dent it. The plan was simple: a steel-reinforced mailbox, bolted securely into a concrete-filled steel post, surrounded by a low steel wall, just high enough to block a bat swing. It wasn't just about functionality, it was about making a statement. Karen wouldn't just be frustrated, she'd be defeated.